Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today, making time for the first webinar, TestRail in 2026. We have a lot to cover today, but the two highlights is that we'll give you a quick recap of what happened feature-wise 2025, and then we'll focus most of our attention in the upcoming TestRail version 10 with Jira Issue Connect. With me, I have Sara Moura, the star of the show. You probably have seen me around in other events. I'm product marketing manager, but Sara's going to guide us through today's webinar. She's product manager at TestRail. She's leading some of our key initiatives across the core platform, and she's working with the teams across engineering, QE, and support to turn the real workflows from real customers into product improvements. It's a pleasure to have you here, Sara.
Thank you so much, João. And as you said, and very well, we'll start with a quick 2025 feature recap. Over the last year, we have delivered very important improvements across three main areas of TestRail: smoother day-to-day workflows, better visibility at scale, and faster ways to build and manage test coverage. We started 2025 with a major UI, UX, and accessibility improvements release, including a refreshed experience, improved navigation, and keyboard support, alongside system stability enhancements. For leadership visibility mostly, enterprise customers gained cross-project reports to track quality across multiple projects and teams. We also expanded accessibility further with in-app localization for both cloud and server, and now we support English, German, French, and Spanish. And on the workflow side, we introduced test case labeling, one of our most adopted features ever, a more flexible and scalable way to categorize both test cases and tests with filtering and project level label management. But we didn't stop here. By end of summer, we introduced a most expected feature, AI test case generation for cloud, helping teams turn requirements into test cases much faster while keeping full control through a human-in-the-loop approach. Finally, we improved onboarding with a new getting started experience. We introduced zero downtime backups for professional and enterprise, and we roll out rich text editing to improve the authoring experience across key fields. So it's only fair to say that 2025 was very strong, was a very strong year in delivery, and we are starting 2026 with the same momentum. So TestRail 10 is our first and also a major one release of the year, and it's centered on one of the most requested areas, strengthening how TestRail connects with Jira. So let's jump right into it. And at the center of TestRail 10 is Jira Issue Connect. This is a new real-time two-way integration that brings Jira requirements and defects directly inside TestRail. Jira data will be live, it will stay in sync, and it will be available everywhere it matters, including test cases, test runs, and reports. And this unlocks true end-to-end traceability without duplicating data or even switching tools. 10.0 will also include a platform upgrade to PHP 8.3, strengthening our security, performance, and long-term stability. Now, a very important note before we get started. Jira Issue Connect is available for Jira Cloud integrations only. So if you want to have access to this feature, you need to confirm the Jira setup that you have and to make sure it is a Jira Cloud integration. That said, let's start with the fundamentals. What exactly is Jira Issue Connect? This feature will bring, as I said, live Jira data directly inside TestRail, and it will keep it synced in real time. This will work both ways for requirements and defects without having to copy data or forcing teams to switch tools. Now, a key design principle here is that linking is explicit. By default, we will sync with all Jira projects available on the Jira instance that the TestRail instance is integrated with, but as usual in TestRail, this is customizable. Only the Jira issues that you intentionally connect are synced, which gives your teams full traceability without unnecessary noise or even governance risk. So once linked, Jira contexts like status, assignee, fixed version will be available directly inside TestRail, not just in test cases, but also in test runs, results, and reports. And the result here is that testing and delivery stay more connected than ever in a single workflow with one shared up-to-date view across both tools. So first things first, how do we set this up? And we wanted to bring the configured instructions here, first so you know how to set it up, of course, but mostly because this is where much of its flexibility and control comes from. To start, you need a Jira Cloud integration, configured, of course, either at the instance level or scoped per project. The logic here stays the same that we have at the moment. Now, as I said, Jira Issue Connect is exclusive to Jira Cloud, so this is the foundation for anything that follows from this point forward. Next, our customers will also be able to choose which Jira fields you wish to see inside TestRail. Now, we connect with all the 11 fields that you see here on the right, but you will need to select up to 5 fields for both references and defects. And this limit is intentional because it keeps the experience focused and what matters most without overwhelming users or introducing unnecessary data. Now, we provide a default set of 5 fields for both references and defects. So if that works for you and your team, you can simply keep the defaults and move on. Once you do all this, you can also control which Jira projects are synced. By default, we'll be syncing with all Jira projects that are part of your Jira instance, but you'll be able to explicitly choose the ones you need. This will give you and your team full traceability where it matters without unnecessary synchronization. And finally, for teams that require real-time updates, you can optionally configure a webhook, and we really recommend you do so because this is what ensures that changes in Jira, such as status or assignee updates, are reflected immediately in TestRail, keeping both systems aligned without any need for manual refreshes. We will have a manual sync button just in case, but if you have the webhook configured, you won't need to worry about this. Now, with this setup in place, your teams will get live Jira context exactly where testing happens. Now, let's take a look together how this can be translated into immediate value in real workflows. And before we jump into the demo, a very quick note on what you are about to see. I will walk us through one concrete example using a release as the organizing concept. Now, this will make it easier for us to follow end-to-end, from planning to execution to release readiness. Having that said, this is just one example. Jira Issue Connect is very flexible by design, and your teams can adapt it to many different workflows, whether that's sprint-based testing, continuous delivery, progression cycles, whatever you're following. The goal here is not to prescribe one way of working, but to show how live Jira context inside TestRail can support better decisions. So without further ado, we will start by seeing how we can prepare a test run by scoping it into a specific release so that our test run reflects what's planned to ship and not the entire backlog. And I will start on our test cases page. With Jira Issue Connect enabled, I can see live Jira context directly alongside my test cases, including the fields like parent and status. And when I'm preparing for a release, the first question isn't which tests exist, is what work is actually planned to ship. So here I have my 9.8 release epic in Jira with all the scope targeted for this release linked to it. So in this example, we're going to create a test run and we will scope it to include all test cases that have one of these Jira tickets as a reference. To do so, instead of manually searching for these test cases, I'm here filtering them by their linked Jira issue parent, my 9.8 release epic. And in seconds, I've created a test run scoped to my needs. Now, the key point here is that the run is now aligned with release intent from the very start. I'm not pulling the entire backlog. I'm not manually identifying test cases one by one. I'm preparing a focused run that represents what the team is delivering. And once we have our test run planned, the next challenge is staying aligned while the work is still moving in Jira by our development teams. And in this example, we are back to our test runs, and 3 of the linked Jira issues are still in progress. So the stories linked to my test cases are not done yet. So I'm going to switch to Jira, and I'm going to update the story status to done. And this means that my test cases will be ready to make part of a test run that can actually be executed. And once I'm back to TestRail, because Jira Issue Connect keeps Jira data synced in real time, the status change is immediately reflected inside the test run. And this is important because status tells me when it makes sense to execute a test. I don't need to refresh dashboards. I don't need to ask updates or switch tools just to confirm readiness. And now I know I can execute the run as I'm doing so, and most tests have passed, but one fails. Now, creating a defect from TestRail isn't new, but we're bringing a small yet very useful improvement with 10.0 as well, setting default values. So I've pre-configured my pushing defect values in order for the project to be TestRail webinar and the issue type bug. And so these fields are pre-assigned, and when I push a defect, they are pre-assigned when I push a defect, and this speeds up the process by a lot. Now, what really changed with Jira Issue Connect is what happens after the defect is created. The Jira issue stays linked and visible inside TestRail, and I can track its status live without leaving the test workflow. So I'm now moving the defect to done in Jira, representing the fact that my development team has fixed it, and I will return to TestRail, and there I will be able to see immediately that this defect is ready for retest. Now that I know that all the defects that are part of this test run are done and fixed, I know I can test this once again. In this example, it will pass. And now I know I'm back to a clean run with full traceability from test failure to fix. So we created our test run, we have executed, finally. We'll see how this all comes together at a milestone level, so we know how we can evaluate release readiness using test results and live Jira defect status in one single view. At this stage, the question isn't just how many tests passed, it's whether the remaining risk is understood, tracked, and acceptable for release. So we're back to TestRail here, and I'm going to open a milestone that I've created ahead, and that includes this test run along with another run in the same release scope. And from here, I can generate a milestone report that shows overall testing process and also includes the status of linked Jira defects if I want it to be included. So the second I add the defects TestRail column, I'm now able to also add the Jira columns I want to see in my report that refer to the defects of the tests I will be reporting in this milestone. And this will give me a single view of text execution and defect readiness all together without manually reconciling TestRail results with Jira dashboards. And it all becomes much easier to communicate release status to development and product stakeholders because everyone is looking at the same up-to-date information: what's been tested, what's still open, and what's truly ready. And this is our workflow end-to-end, from planning to execution to release readiness, with Jira Issue Connect keeping, as the name suggests, everything quite connected. Now, at this point, we have covered the past, we have talked about the present, and as a sneak peek, we also brought a little bit of the future. We will share a quick look at what is coming next for Jira, which is Jira Coverage Check. Now, the goal with this upcoming feature is to answer one very simple yet highly important question. To answer in real time, for a given Jira scope, like a fixed version or a sprint, which Jira issues are not linked to any test case. And this feature will help us with this by giving us users a coverage percentage and a clear list of the Jira tickets currently missing tests. And this list will be reviewed directly in TestRail, or it can also be exported to CSV or PDF for follow-up. This will help teams detect coverage gaps much early, so untested work doesn't slip unnoticed. And with all of these, we have covered the key updates, the 10.0 highlights, and the Jira Issue Connect with a sneak peek into what's coming ahead. So, João, with this, I go over to you so we can kick off Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, Q&A has been very lively today, which is so great to see everyone very engaged. I've been trying to answer a few of them in writing, but I do think it's worth us looking some of these, take some of these answers live, because I do think, as we answer one person, we'll answer multiple.
I'm looking at the questions we have here, and we can answer a few of them live here. Miranda is asking if we can provide a link to the support page with a video and step-by-step of what we just showed here today. So as usual, when we release, we will be releasing the release notes together with the release. You will all be informed by email, and it's also available on our website. And the second we have the release notes available, we will also have documentation available, so you know exactly how to set this up for you and your team, and also have a full view of what's possible to do with this new feature in terms of reporting and so on. I've brought one single report here today, but Jira data will be available on all the 15 reports that we have available. So don't worry, we'll make sure that you have all the information you need to start using this from the very first day.
And the other thing, Sarah, is that our TestRail Academy course on the integration with Jira will be updated as well. So folks can also just get guidance from there as well. So plenty of resources to be sure that you're leveraging as much as possible this new enhanced integration. Yeah, they'll come your way. So you'll get the recording and the assets we'll talk about today. Yeah, as when we do release it, you'll have even more resources.
Yes. We also have an important question here. Sorry, I lost it because new ones are popping up. Question from Ryan, do we need a certain admin access to even connect to Jira? Jira connection can be done by admins or project admins. So if you are not an admin or a project admin on your TestRail instance, you won't be able to set up this connection. But if you are, you should be able to. Ryan also mentioned that he thinks they may be underutilizing this tool. If you do not have a Jira integration and you do use Jira, please try to configure it, because it will enhance your workflow by a lot, for sure.
There's a question here which I think is really really important, that you covered, but I think it's really important. So Natalie is asking if this change has been done only for Jira Cloud or Jira Server too. I think we'll have this, and it's really crucial that we clear this out
Yes,
for
and
everyone.
it's a great question. So this feature is exclusive to Jira Cloud integration, but let's not confuse that with TestRail Cloud and TestRail Server. It's available for Jira Cloud only. As you are probably aware, Jira is deprecating Jira DC very soon. So at this point, we are only providing this for Jira Cloud. But regardless of whether you are a TestRail Cloud instance or a TestRail server, you can still integrate with Jira Cloud. Hopefully this will answer Natalie's question, because it's an important distinction to do here. Now we have also a question, do we have any schedules around TestRail server release with version 10? Yes, we have. Tomorrow we will start rollout. As you know, we roll out by different release tracks. So expectations is that by the end of the next week, the majority of you should have access to 10.0. We will start synchronizing with Jira. Once your TestRail instance is fully synchronized with Jira data, you will receive a notification, or the admins will receive an email notification letting you know that everything is ready for you to start enjoying this feature in full. We have another interesting question. For defects creation on Jira, should we have the Jira integration set up to have visibility on the push button for failed tests? If you want to push defects straight away to Jira, you do need to have the integration. The Jira integration can happen at the instance level or at the project level. It depends on what works best for you, but if you want to push them directly, you do need an active Jira integration.
There's a few people asking a similar question, which is in terms of the visibility of data inside of Jira. How does this support, people that don't have access to TestRail? Will they still is this improving any of the of that type of information? So
I
without
get the
coming to
question.
TestRail, yeah.
Yeah, I get the question. So the focus of this feature was to bring Jira inside TestRail. It was one of the most requested things we had on the last year. So anything that happens inside Jira stays the same. What we are doing is improving the visibility of Jira inside TestRail, so you don't have to leave TestRail while everything is happening in Jira. We have an interesting question here. So can you go over how TestRail 10 will improve requirements mapping and traceability reports? So we have currently 15 reports available in TestRail. All of them will have the option to include Jira data. One important thing to note here is that some of our reports, they list test cases. Some of them, they list tests. And some of them, they list references or even defects. If you are looking at a report such as the milestone that we just saw on this demo, milestone summary is a report that lists tests. And if you have a report like this, the Jira information that you will see, it will be referring to the defects that are linked to these tests. Now, let's say that you have another kind of report that lists references, for example. Coverage for references is a TestRail report where you have a full list of references. In this case, the Jira details will be referring to each of the references that we have here. So this is mainly how we improve the current reports that you have. So if you have a list of test cases, you know you have references, you will have the information of those references right away in that report. You will know if a run is ready to be executed and so on. Now, we do know that this doesn't cover it the other way around, the traceability the other way around. Our reports looked at anything that it's linked to TestRail. Anything that it's not, we can keep track of it. And that's where Jira Coverage Check, the feature that is upcoming, will jump in. With Jira Coverage Check, we will finally have the end-to-end circle and full traceability coverage, because we will be able to, for a certain fix version or a certain sprint, we will know, okay, from the Jira tickets that I have inside this sprint, which ones are not anywhere in TestRail. And with the upcoming feature, Jira Coverage Check, we will finally have this all covered from one end to the other, working together with the 15 reports that we have available at this point. Question from Stephen. About integration to multiple instances of Jira, it sounds like this is possible because you mentioned you can integrate at the project level. Indeed. So when you have a TestRail instance, you can configure an integration with Jira at your instance level, and that will apply to all projects inside your TestRail instance. If you go and you configure an integration to a certain project, this project level integration will override the instance one. You can keep both, but any project that has a project level integration with Jira will look into this Jira instance instead of looking at the global one. So yes, you can have different projects looking at different Jira instances if you configure at the project level. Curious question. I won't say names in case it's sensitive. We currently use the defect field to track our customer ticket number for their site. What happens now if we want to still track that information, which is not our Jira integration? So the way the Jira integration works is that it will look at your defects field and it will identify any of the defects that are Jira tickets. And for those, you will have your Jira information. If you have their defects that are not from Jira or it's a different reference, everything is okay, it stays the same. The Jira information, it will be related to defects that come from Jira or references that come from Jira, but you can also have other things on the defect fields and references fields. That behavior will stay the same as it currently works. Lots of questions about when this will come out. We have addressed it. Another great question. Once after we generate the report, oh gosh, someone sent a new one and I lost it, but I memorized it. Once we create a report and after that we change anything in Jira, will the report reflect that? If it's a single report, it doesn't. The reports in TestRail, they show you the data from the moment that you generated it. But if you have those pre-scheduled reports where you receive one or you generate one every other week, they will have updated information according to the most recent changes in Jira. As I said, we are starting rollouts tomorrow, so we had the webinar just in time. As you know, we release by different release tracks, so we will have them following up on the upcoming days. By end of next week, the majority of our customers should have access to TestRail 10.0. Also a question, why the limit to just 5 fields with TestRail 10.0? Current integration allows 9, I think, Jira fields. So we will be syncing with the 11 fields that we showed here previously, and I can go back real quick on the screen sharing. All of these will be available to sync. We are intentionally limiting the number of fields that you will be able to see across TestRail to 5 to make it easier visually. But at any moment, you can go back and change your configurations. And so instead of seeing the 5 that you have settled up here, you will be seeing the new ones. So we will have the data for all of them, but across TestRail and the reports, you will see the ones that are the most important ones. Otherwise, tables, reports, and so on would be really packed up and it wouldn't be readable. Will we be able to add linked issues from a Jira ticket into a test run? Yes, we will. That's what we showed here on the demo. So this is not new. In TestRail, you can add references to a test case. And once you generate a test run, you create tests based on that test case. Now, the references that are linked to the test case will also be linked to your test. You don't have a specific references field for the test entity itself. You have it on the test case entity.
Hey everyone, new face here. Sarah, I'm joining the call as Joan's having some difficulties with his webcam and so on. Everyone, I think might have seen some of you might have seen me in the past. George here, lead product manager at TestRail. Just joining the call overall, Sarah, to help you with some of this Q&A, especially since Joan can't attend anymore. And I was actually already answering some of that Q&A in the chat. So I did see a pattern with a few people were asking about Jira integrations and how do I make this work? I've got more than one Jira instance. Is that possible? Is it not? Just to reiterate for everyone, we do have instance level integrations at TestRail and project level integrations. This enables teams to go ahead and make sure, well, this enables people using TestRail make sure that every project/team can integrate with whatever tool they feel is needed for their day-to-day activities. So in this case, yes, you can integrate with multiple Jira instances. The way you'd go about this is any project level integration overrides the settings of the instance level. So if team A and team B use two different Jira instances, the way you'd set this up is go into your admin panel. You need admin or project level admin permissions to do that. Open that specific project and you can configure either reference or defect integrations just for that project. Yeah, so that answers a few questions, I guess, where yes, you can leverage this feature for different Jira projects at the same time. And even before TestRail 10, you were already able to integrate with different Jira projects if you needed to.
Yes, thank you, George. I'm also seeing kind of a pattern with the latest upcoming questions, which is, does TestRail supports multiple Jira reference to the same test case? Yes. Currently, you can add as many references as you wish to a single test case. We even increased the number of characters allowed on this field precisely because it was also highly requested. If you have more than one Jira ticket there, you will see more than one Jira ticket in your test case as well. We will grab the information, all of them. The behavior here stays exactly the same. Looking here into further questions.
I'm also sieving through the long list of questions. They keep coming in. I'm trying to find patterns and those those that will answer more in one go. Work with Jira releases. Yes. So there's a question here about, will the integration work with Jira releases as opposed to sprints? The answer is yes. You don't see anything that reads releases there in the Jira fields, but by default, Jira out of the box comes with the concept of a fixed version. That's what you see in the rightmost checkbox there on the screenshot. Fixed versions are what Jira uses to track releases on all. So if you are looking to look into the status or have visibility of what release this Jira issue belongs to, go ahead, make sure you select the fixed version sync. That's then going to be visible in your test repository, in your reports, and so on. In your repository, by the way, you'll probably have to add that column if you want it to be shown at all times. If not, just go ahead, open a specific test case, and all that information will be visible.
Yes, actually, fixed version is one of our default fields for defects, precisely to keep track of that. But again, you can customize this as you wish.
Also, I was answering some of these live on chat. A bit hard to do both at the same time. But for people who were asking about what about this new feature, or have you considered this or that, just beware, we are going to keep the entire list of questions that we get asked. Whatever is a question about a potential new feature or improvement, we're taking notes of that and adding it to our feature request and improvement backlog. So don't worry, even if you don't get an answer pronto right now during the webinar, we're definitely keeping track of all of these, and we will create the feature requests if needed. Did you spot any other questions, Sarah?
Also, a few questions about access to Jira and access to TestRail. A specific one. The current integration requires that the person accessing to the Jira ticket to also have an active account for TestRail. So if they don't have an explicit account, it's like you can't benefit from the integration. For you to have visibility of TestRail and vice versa, you need to have a TestRail account. That will remain the same. We are not changing that. So the previous rules also apply here. In order for you to see TestRail information inside Jira, you do need to have a TestRail account.
I'll follow up with the next question. And this one's a bit different from others we've seen, which is, how does this work at scale? The question reads, for organizations with multiple Jira projects or large test suites, how does TestRail 10 handle traceability at scale, and what governance or configuration strategies do you recommend? This has come up during some customer interviews whilst we were developing the feature, so I'm glad the question got asked. Essentially, thinking about governance, if you have tens, hundreds of Jira projects, and you don't want everyone to have visibility of everything, right? Because obviously, if you just go ahead, integrate with the entire Jira space, what's going to happen is if someone searches for a Jira reference, they will have visibility of it, and you might not want that to happen. So the way you go about this, again, takes us back to the instance and project level integrations. The way I'd go around making sure each team only has access to their specific data. So if every team of yours or every TestRail project has a one-to-one relation with a Jira project as well, the way you'd go about this is setting up project level integrations. But the key point of all of this is making sure when you're setting up the Jira integration for that specific project, you probably have to set up a new user in Jira, but make sure you use the Jira user's credentials that only has access to that specific project. So the way the integration is going to work is it's going to use that Jira user credentials for the integration, and it will only have access to whichever scope that user already had access to. So if user one only has access to project one, you don't have to worry about that user getting to see project two data. And that's essentially how you go about it. So if there's a scenario where some of your projects you just want to use a broad integration and others you have this concern I just talked to, go ahead, set up an instance level integration that will cover every single project. And for those that you were very concerned about, just create a project level integration for those, use a user a Jira user that only has access to that scope, and you're done. And that's how you go about making sure you're not opening the doors to your entire Jira instance to all your TestRail users. There's other things that you can do, obviously, again, and that's standard practice at TestRail, not with the Jira integration. So, we've got very granular user roles and permissions and groups as well. So you should be able to easily make sure that users only have access to specific projects. Some will only have view permissions. Others can go ahead and delete. And to facilitate this even further, if you're thinking, well, this is going to take a long time if I reach out to our TestRail instance administrator and have him do all these changes themselves. Just so you all know, there's also an enterprise-specific feature at TestRail called project level integration, and that's how you help with these deployments at scale. Instead of having one person or a small team manage the entire TestRail instance, with TestRail Enterprise, you can decide and assign project level admin roles for a few users. Let's imagine those would be your team leads or department leads. And those people with project level permissions will be able to set up these integrations themselves. So instead of having one person have to do it for every single team, you can have teams working by themselves and having project level admin roles. They won't be able to fiddle with security related settings and so on in the admin panel, but they will be able to configure their own projects. Sorry, a lot was said there. Hopefully, I made things a bit easier to understand.
No, but it makes sense. I don't see a lot more patterns, but I do see an interesting one, and this is already going into a little bit into the future. People are already curious about the data coverage check, which is good. And we have a question here from Miranda asking, is there a way to turn off the check piece or to customize it? Some of the work items will not be tested by QA and that are there for tracking purpose. So the concern is that the report skews the results, making it appear that we missed something. It really depends on what you are checking against. If you are checking against a sprint, you might be able not to include these tickets that are there for tracking purposes. If you are checking against a fixed version, probably they will come up. Now, this will be the first time that we'll be releasing Jira Coverage Check. We want to deliver value as soon as possible. So we will start with the absolutely mandatory things for you to have coverage check as soon as possible. We are not planning to have customization at this point, but it's definitely something we can keep an eye on as a potential improvement.
If I may build on top of that, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind skipping to the test coverage slide.
Oh, sure.
So even though the percentage you'll see again will include those custom type issues, you will still be able to both export this as a CSV or as a PDF. Also, sorry, I was under the impression we had screenshots. You'll be able to export as both. And what the coverage report will say, let's imagine you've got 10 cases, 5 of those are marketing tasks that you don't care about coverage for. The report will read 50% coverage. Right underneath, there'll be a table with the list of Jira entities who do not have any coverage. The issue types for those will probably read task or marketing task or documentation, something of that sort. And whoever's looking at this coverage report will have the ability to look at the 50%, look at what is the missing 50%, and very quickly make the decision that, okay, this is irrelevant. It is actually 100% covered. Team, we can go ahead and proceed with this release. So you'll have access to the underlying data, but as Sarah said, we are not going to import those specific issue types. We are going to support you selecting, I only want to run a check for either issues or tasks or subtasks or bugs or others. Whenever someone will select others with this feature, it's going to pull in all issue types that belong to that entity. Again, this is still not the Jira coverage check is still in development. It's not part of this release. We just thought to include it as a sneak peek into something more that we're adding to our Jira integration. But yeah, that's how it will work for the first time it's out. And Sarah, yes, sorry for stealing the show a bit, but I see another question which I think you addressed. If you'd care to jump to I think this was covered in one of your videos, but the question reads, hopefully this will work for multiple Jira issues referenced to a test case. Yes, it will. So either whenever you see in a column, so if you're in a test case repository, we've got all your test cases. the data that's going to be shown for, let's say, Jira Status and Jira Epic, for example, will be the latest reference that was added to that ticket. But if you hover over the plus sign, so let's say you've got 10 references, there you go. If you hover over that plus sign, we're going to show you a list of all the tickets that are referenced to it. And you might be thinking, yeah, but how am I going to work on top of a hover? Well, if you then click inside the actual case to view the test case, there's also going to be a table in there with every single reference and all the Jira data related to them. In this case, you only have two, but it goes to the point where, as you can see at the bottom, you can actually paginate. So if you've got 100 references linked to a test case, that's all good. You're still going to see the data in there.
Yes, and even sorting and filtering in case you have lots of them, now that we have increased the number of characters for this field.
I don't know if we covered this. If you already went over this, I might have missed it, but just so everyone knows as well, if you're asking questions, you're thinking, well, mine hasn't got answered yet, and we reach the end of the call and it doesn't get answered. Not only we keep track of feature requests and improvements, but we keep track of the unanswered questions, and our lovely marketing team does a great job of putting these all into a sheet. We take a couple days to get all the other questions answered, and this should go together with a summary for everyone. So don't be worried if your question did get answered right now.
We have also a good one here, which is what will happen with the current already synced references and defect fields in TestRail? I touched this very briefly, so we'll recap on it. The second we start rolling out this version 10.0, we will start syncing the Jira data that you already have linked to your test cases and tests, and we will start storing it in TestRail. Now, this will take as much time as many references and defects you have on your instance. What will happen is that once this process is completed, the admins of the TestRail instances will receive an email letting them know that the process has finished and everything is ready to set up to start using. Now we do have a manual refresh option. I didn't show it at the demo, but since we're here, you have this button here where you can manually sync. It's very tempting that in the beginning you make use of this button and it will probably sync the specific test case much faster, but overall there will be a background job running in the backend, so everything that you already have, it's synced and ready for you to use on your TestRail instance. Anything that it's added after the upgrade, it will be there immediately for you to see and use.
Sorry, I'm looking at the side, but I'm actually double checking that I'm gonna answer one of these questions correctly. But yes, awesome. Yeah, I was right. So one question which is pretty cool because it pertains to our existing Jira functionality and what we're getting together with 10.0, which reads, I assume that Jira reference can be used in dynamic filters for test runs. The answer is yes, it can, and that's one of the ways we recommend you to use this. So you would essentially be able to go and say and create a test run, for example, either for reference. So you say any test that gets this reference attached gets pulled into the test run automatically via dynamic filters. Or you can go ahead and do something even cooler, which instead of saying this, if this test case, if this Jira case, this Jira case, and this Jira case get added, and that takes time and yeah, just make things a bit harder. You can instead go ahead and do what Sarah's about to show, which is forget about that. Just say any test, any Jira issue linked to this epic, I want it to be added automatically. And that stops you from having to go ticket by ticket. Just go ahead, add the parent, and done. All the child Jira tickets will be added as well. And I promise this wasn't planned, me speaking and Sarah doing things at the same time. But it worked.
Yeah, we prepared a small instance for any ad hoc requests during this webinar.
Let me see if we can spot anything else. How much time do we have left? We've got 6 minutes left. Again, I'll go over this yet again. So Sarah's gone over the release timelines a few times. I've seen a few people ask questions about how is this going to work? How do I set it up? When is this coming out? So the coming out part, Sarah's replied, we're going to start rollouts as soon as tomorrow. Again, this might take a few days to get to your instance because we do phased out rollouts to ensure we're not releasing anything bad into your instances. But on the other side, as usual, there will be release notes to support all of this, explaining what value you can get and so on. And there also is going to be documentation on how to set up the feature. There's going to be a lot of supporting evidence on how to set up and also what are the best use cases that we can think of. There's probably still going to be other use cases that we haven't even thought about because having this data at your hands, like there's a lot of potential there. But we will be publishing all of this as soon as we start rollouts. So hopefully a large portion of these questions will be answered proactively by our docs. Again, if you still look at our documentation and you've got questions or you feel something's missing, you're all familiar with our support requests as well. We can probably drop a link somewhere, but essentially you can go over to testrail.com, submit a new support request under technical support, and go ahead and let us know what question you have, what improvement request for the docs you have. Obviously, this is a bilateral relationship, so help us help you as well, please.
I think we have covered most of the questions by now.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm giving a last sift to see if we missed anything else. Well, we missed a few things, but most of them are not related to the 10.0 release or the
Yeah.
questions about other functionality. Those are the types of questions that we're going to answer after the fact. Yeah, I think we've covered the majority of it. We haven't had questions come in a while. So, Sarah, you were the star of the show. I'll let you close things off.
Oh,
Everyone,
goodness.
really nice to see you all again.
Well, thank you everyone for joining. It was a pleasure to be here today. I think we can call it off for the day, at least for us, which is end of day here. But have a nice day, everyone, and thank you again for joining.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Bye-bye.